Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm sitting with two friends of mine. First, I have Ken Pfeil, who's the chief architect for Tech Democracy, and also have Gautam Dev, who is the chief managing principal for the company. Well, welcome, guys. Welcome to New York.
Good to be here.
Nice to see you guys. I'm looking forward to hearing about Tech Democracy, the platform you build, and also want to hear a little bit about you guys. Ken, let's start with you. We've known each other a while. How'd you get into this racket first, and then we'll hear a little bit about the company.
Well, I joined TDC about 2 years ago, and one of the things that was really interesting to me was the ability to kind of build something that we as CISOs were having to scorecard and do manually, and and all of the stuff that we've been doing for years. So the thought of actually building something that could automate that, as well as building a new risk platform, was most appealing to me.
Yeah.
So.
And that is risk reporting and risk analytics and collection, and those are all really important.
Absolutely.
And also nagging problems, right? So
for years and probably eons.
Yeah. So you've been with the company 2 years.
2 years.
And as chief architect, you're building out, is it a platform that you guys are building?
It's a platform, but we also have a range of services to interpret the platform, as well as we've built a risk management framework, from the ground up, that ties in with pretty much any regulatory framework or any risk management framework right now that there is.
That's exciting. Now, Gautam, tell us about yourself. How'd you get involved in the company and what you've been up to?
Well, I've been doing nothing but security for the past 23 years. I started in Australia, built a few products. I've been involved in building a few products, and I've been, talking about this framework that Ken mentions, right? As far as wholesome cyber risk governance framework is to include all different technologies, different pieces of the infrastructure that are out there, which otherwise are disconnected, and then be able to give you a one view that could be interpreted easily by different sections of an organization, primarily the board or the CISOs or the C-level folks, and then at a different level, the management team or the operations team. So we built kind of a hierarchy of different layers that you could speak to what risk really means within an organization and how you can quantify that risk at your level and make sense of it, as well as at the end of the day kind of boiling it out down to what is a financial liability if those risks are persistent within an organization. So that's.
Let me make sure I understand. So the levels imply that risk means something different to a board member as to a software developer.
Exactly.
Is that the idea? How does that work? So it's the same risk, but just looking at it from different ways? Is that how you
exactly. So what we have is what we call a shortcut reporting, if you would, right? So what we've done is we've built different questions, verbal queries that maybe a board member asks of a C-level exec, and what a C-level exec might ask of its management team, and what the management team might ask of the operational team. So there are different layers of those kind of queries that we build, and the ability to kind of enhance those queries as to what might be pertinent to a particular organization. So at that level, for example, a board or a C-level exec might ask, am I spending wisely? Right? Am I more secure today than I was yesterday? So, and we literally give a response back and quantify that response with evidence as well, based on the data that we've kind of collated.
So Ken, it's your job to breathe automation into this, I presume. How do you, is it, you're taking the input and dropping it into a common framework, or how does that work? How do you automate something that sounds so human and manual?
Well, we've developed a framework across 4 fundamental dimensions: informed, secured, governed, resilient.
Say that again. Say that. You got to say that more slowly. We got to hear those. That sounds too important.
Informed, secured, governed.
Informed, secured,
governed, and
resilient.
And resilient. God, those are 4 levels.
Those. If you, we look at those as 4 dimensions of information and technology security.
Okay.
So if you look at those on a vertical scale, right? You're going to have areas of technology along a horizontal scale, or what we call dimensions, right? Network, platform, application, data. We have six dimensions that we go across, which creates approximately 24 different intersections of where technology can reside to represent your technology risk. And what we do is, you may have one piece of technology deployed in your enterprise that may represent more than one area of coverage. But for total coverage, you're going to need to cover at least 24 points with technology. So, being able to ingest all of the feeds, that come in and apply them to not only situations that are happening in your enterprise, but also across various different indexes that we have available.
So essentially what we have is going back to the framework, and the platform kind of enables the framework. 4 dimensions: informed, secure. You got to be informed, you got to keep yourself secured, and then be able to govern what you've spent on keeping yourself secured. And resilient is essentially, testing and trying to break your whole system as much so till the time it can't break anymore, which it's a kind of persistent kind of a resilience, making yourself stronger. So those are 4 areas, or call it 4 COEs, but that's across 6 areas of concentration: device, network, application, data, platform, and
Entity.
Yeah, entity. Right. So it's this kind of.
So it's like 6 times 24 little boxes.
Yeah, so it's 24. So essentially, what the idea is, there's all these technologies. How do you slot them, and then be able to normalize the data that you collate from them, and come up with consolidated situations that can then give you this scoring mechanism. So beyond the framework, what we have is a risk quantification framework as well that we built into the platform, which gives you the ability to kind of score for every anomalous situation that you might have within an organization. The 24 intersections, you map different technologies to those intersections. I mean, it's not necessary that you have 24 technologies, but there might be one technology that kind of layers over multiple intersections. But that's ways and means of understanding the data that you're collating and normalizing that data to be, kind of putting forth a risk score at the end.
Now, do you guys have different views of the platforms at the different levels? Because a board member wants to see one thing, and then a developer, and also a developer probably has completely different motivation for worrying about risk. A board member wants to know to kind of cover the governance issue. A developer maybe doesn't want everyone to know about risk. How do you deal with the dichotomy of motivations?
Right. So out of the box, what we have is there's 2 things. Right? There's 3 different indexes that we provide. One is to what we call the compliance index, that gives you your kind of adherence to regulation standards or what have you. And then what we call the breachability index is, how vulnerable are you towards a breach today? And the third one is an entity index, which is more operational in nature, or how your folks and people that you're given access to, how they are operating. Now, as far as the layers of visibility as to how you view this data on a broader scale, those questions that I was talking about. From a board member, he doesn't want to know how many vulnerabilities you took care of last month and what have you. But at a different level, he says, are we spending wisely? So what does that mean? Have we invested in technologies, and has my risk score gone up or down or remained consistent? That's what they want to know. Whereas from an operational point of view, or engineering team point of view, it's important for them to know, okay, what kind of vulnerabilities did we resolve? What new vulnerabilities did we incur? View in the last month or so, or whatever the time frame, and how do we kind of operate on those? So, and what is the operational metrics towards, bringing, managing the risk, if you would. So that's what we build as far as how you view the data that we consolidate, the different indexes from a 3,000 or feet level as to the weed down to the weeds, and so it's from that point of view, it's you have board member looking at it, the same data but getting a different information.
It's really interesting.
And then the management team looking at it and seeing, okay, am I resolving risk faster because I hired 50 more people, or am I not resolving these risks soon enough because I'm kind of my head count's kind of a little bit low. So that kind of dimension as well. From an operational point of view, again, it's what the engineer is doing, how well is it kind of taking shape, or has taken shape in the
That's
last.
a great summary. Now, Ken, you spent a lot of time thinking about standards, and you're part of an alliance. You guys have led an alliance to try to standardize. And tell us a little bit about the alliance and how you're bringing the community into these concepts.
Well, we've recently kicked off an initiative, an alliance, the Alliance for Cyber Risk Governance. And what we're aiming to do is we're not aiming to be just yet another standard, right? We're aiming to kind of tie things in, that have already or often been tried to be translated from the technical realm into areas that executives can understand. Executives, when they go to business school, they don't learn a whole lot about technology risk. They learn about, credit market risk, operational risk, reputational risk, a whole plethora of business terms. They don't learn about technical risk. And a lot of the times as technologists, we're having to try and translate that into ways that they can understand and ways that make financial, good financial sense so that they can make decisions as well as, the senior security executives can actually, translate what they're doing into business terms. So that was the whole crux behind establishing the ACRG. We are aiming to work with just about any framework that's out there, as well as any area of technology risk, and try and translate things into business risk from a technology standpoint.
You find that requirement to translate to business risk, is that a tough thing to do? Like, I think you can think of use cases where it's easy, but there must be some where it's hard, where there's some like an insider risk. What's the business implication? It could be the whole company goes out of business. I mean, how do you quantify to max, to min, to average? Do you give ranges?
Right.
That must be hard.
No, that's a great question, and that's why what we have built within the platform is what we call a risk calculator, and that does exactly what you were saying. How do you, select the range? How do you select the amount of data? For example, if a situation was to take place, which is an anomalous situation, what is the amount of data that you would lose? What is the value of that data, and how do you, then apply that value towards, what does that mean to your business? What percentage of your annual revenue would be affected based on, so what is your annual revenue? So we kind of look at it from two points of view as far as the risk calculator goes. What is the impact of the risk, and what's the criticality of the risk? The criticality of the risk basically lets you know how difficult might it be to kind of have that risk appear within an organization. So, for example, how difficult would it be to organize one type of a hack or a breach? The liability is if a breach happens, then what is the value of that breach? So we take those two-dimensional matrix and then we compile all of that together to say, okay, how difficult is the risk to first occur? What is the value of that risk? And then we compile that matrix to come up with a consolidated risk score and then a financial liability value based on that. And we have multiple situational variables that define the risk liability and the risk criticality that you can select and customize based on the organization's conditions or organization's situation as far as.
It's interesting, both of you guys use the word risk as opposed to cyber risk, which is what I would have normally said. But I'm assuming you really mean that, right? It's not just cyber risk, even though I'm guessing, in the context of this discussion, I bet 9 out of 10 people watching this do cyber.
Yeah.
But am I reading that right, that it could be other risks?
Yeah, you're reading it absolutely correctly. And that, again, is one of the intents of establishing the ACRG. Right, we live in the cyber, right? That's what we do. That's what we know.
Right.
That's what we're good at. Right. The business folks live in the business world, and we need to be able to kind of level the playing field and teach them what we know in the terms that they understand, and vice versa. Right. So that's trying to establish that. One of the things that I've seen over many years of doing this, and I'm sure you have too. We are very good at qualitative risk. We're very good at saying digits on, digits off. Risk is there, risk is not. But we haven't been so good at quantifying that risk, right? And relating that risk to other areas of risk. And that's one of the things that we're trying to bridge the gap and kind of do, as a spring off. I don't know of any other company that's looking at risk. Much less, cyber risk, in the way that we are right now.
Right. So the goal was, when we set out, with the framework and then operationalizing it, but the platform was, with the technologies or different financial, kind of domains and what have you, everyone kind of has their own prism and their own view of how to qualitatively or quantify a risk. Right, in their chip, and it's all good, right? I mean, you have vulnerability scores where you do app, testing, security testing, and that's, you get your CVV score or what have you. You have your risk scoring mechanism through some sort of monitoring. I mean, there's different scoring mechanism, if you will, but how do you collect all of those prisms and make kind of a wholesome, a platform that could consolidate all of that and be viewed for exactly what you want to know from such a platform. I mean, like Ken was pointing out, different spreadsheets or what have you. You wouldn't go to a board to say, okay, today my vulnerability score or my application security testing score was such and such because such application had so many vulnerabilities, right? What they would want to know is, are we secure today? And why are we saying that we are more secure today than we were yesterday? Mm-hmm. So that was the goal, to collect all the technologies, again, the 24 intersections, normalize that, and have the capability to then be able to project these verbal responses back to whoever wants to view it from a board point of view, operational point of view, management point of view.
Yeah, you know yourself, Ed. You walk into a board and you tell them, well, our vulnerabilities are down from last month, and you're going to get a blank look. You're going to get a bunch of blank stares, and what the hell are you talking about? What does that mean to me? And one of the things that we, as technologists, need to do, and kind of moving forward, is to be able to translate that technical risk into terms that they understand. So, our platform not only operationalizes that, but makes things a little bit easier, as well as it makes it, kind of a visualization a lot better.
Is that kind of the future of risk management and reporting, like automation that's intelligent enough to communicate to whatever?
Absolutely.
Is that where this is all heading?
And people talk about artificial intelligence. I talk about real intelligence, right? You got to build those real situations that could be anomalous or harmful towards an organization, and from a point of view for risk, right? Once you have that repository of those anomalous situations, then you do your machine learning, because that is real data that you're spinning off of, rather than starting from a point that you've assumed and then building your story from there, right? So our point of view is, every organization has a different flavor of maybe the same problem statement, or a different problem statement altogether. So how do you spawn off of their problem statement and kind of get to a repository of these anomalous situations that really matter to them? Right? And again, going back to when you said cyber risk versus risk, we see risk as risk. Right now, obviously, we are dealing with a whole lot of cyber technologies, consolidating them, putting them in perspectives of regulations, putting them in perspective for can a breach occur, or what is your entity behavior, today as opposed to yesterday. But that said, a situation could be a financial situation, right? Financial anomaly, and it could be a financial risk. So what you were saying is, it's kind of, this whole realm between what is technology risk versus what an organizational risk might be. I think that's kind of it's coming closer, and the boundaries are kind of despairing, because the one thing has to lead to another, right? I mean, technology risk does mean business risk as well, and or vice versa for that matter.
Well, you've done a nice job, and you've got an experienced team, very capable team, and I'm glad that business is good. It's so wonderful to see both of you here in New York today. Thanks for coming by.
Good to be back home.
Stop back again and give us an update as you guys continue to develop the platform.
Sure.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Great, and we'll see you next time.